mom and dad were singers, and I tell everybody that I'm the only one that took it.
For many country artists, becoming a member of the Grand Ole Opry happens in the early or middle stages of their career. It's often when Nashville tips its hat and says, "You're part of the family now." But for Gene Watson, that call didn't come for decades. Imagine when that long-awaited moment finally came. Gene Watson finally stood on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry and was inducted as a member. The feeling must have been surreal. At 80, Gene Watson has opened up about how he feels about the Opry. What secrets lie behind the velvet curtains of the Grand Ole Opry? Stay with us as we unveil this grand stage's hidden and untold stories. Gene Watson's Opry induction. Let's start with what the Grand Ole Opry represents. The Grand Opry is country music's biggest stage and home to legends and rising stars. Since 1925, the Opry has been the beating heart of country music. The Grand Ole Opry is the show that made country music famous. The Opry features a dynamic lineup of new stars, superstars, and country music legends. Unlike a typical concert, the Opry presents 8 or more artists on each show, giving the audience a sample of each artist's musical style. Only the Opry has this kind of showcase, nothing quite like it. For many singers, being invited into the Opry means being recognized as a faithful keeper of country music's soul. It's like joining a sacred circle of legends. Gene Watson knew this. Growing up, he had been listening to Opry members like Hank Williams, Kitty Wells, and George Jones on the radio in Texas. To him, the Opry wasn't just another venue where music was showcased, it was the home of country music. Since its inception, the Grand Ole Opry has been about more than fame. That stage was for honoring tradition, celebrating authentic voices, and preserving the soul of country music. When you think about the values we just mentioned, you'd see that Gene Watson fits perfectly. He had a voice and authenticity that embodied what the Opry stands for. He was a staunch country music artist who sang with emotion, which earned him respect from fans and peers alike. The Grand Ole Opry has always followed its own timing when inviting artists to become members. Sometimes artists are inducted early in their careers, and others must wait for decades. The reasons are rarely explained, and often it comes down to timing. For Gene Watson, the timing took longer than almost anyone expected. But looking back, it added to the weight of the moment when the invitation finally came. Even without being a member, Gene Watson was privileged to grace that grand stage from time to time. He performed at the Opry many times as a guest for decades. Each time, his voice filled the hall with the kind of sound that felt at home there. He brought his signature sound, which is smooth, heartfelt, and deeply soulful music. His songs fit perfectly alongside the classics, so it's no wonder that the crowd always goes wild each time he is on stage. But there was always a difference between standing on that stage as a guest artist and standing there as a member. As a guest, you were invited to perform just for the night, but if you're a member, you become part of the family forever. Standing on that stage as a guest was always special, but becoming a member meant your name would be written into history. Fans often wondered aloud why Gene Watson wasn't an official member of the Opry. After all, he had the voice and everything the Opry claimed to celebrate. His songs reflected core country music tradition, and his performances always connected with the audience. Even his fellow artists were concerned. This was someone with talent, and his songs had made an enormous contribution to country music, so they didn't understand why he wasn't given recognition. Gene himself admitted in interviews that he didn't know the reason either. Anytime he was asked about it, he would just smile, shrug, and say he had no control over it. In his 70s, Gene Watson was still singing and touring with the same power as always. More than 50 years had passed since he began his music career, and fans had almost given up hope that the Opry would ever make him a member. Some said it was too late, that the institution had missed its chance, but Gene never put his mind to the title or limited himself. He knew that his music was enough, and he believed it would happen if he were meant to be a member of the Opry. He kept with his career, singing and holding on to the tradition he had always stood for. And then, in 2020, a moment that fans had been waiting decades to see finally happened. Gene Watson got a surprise invitation to join the Opry as a member. He was surprised on stage with an invitation that brought decades of waiting to an end. The invitation came on January 17, 2020, inside the Grand Ole Opry House in Nashville. Gene Watson, the singer from Texas who had spent a lifetime carrying the true spirit of country music, was finally about to hear the words he had dreamed of since childhood. He had walked onto that stage for years as a guest, but that night began a new era for him. Gene had been invited to perform at the Opry as a guest that night, which he had done countless times before. When it was his turn to perform, he went on the stage and performed his song with the same grace while the crowd roared and sang along. After his performance, Vince Gill, one of the most respected voices in country music and a longtime member of the Opry himself, walked out and joined him on stage. Nobody expected what happened next. They thought it was a casual moment when one artist tried to honor another. But the atmosphere changed when Vince looked Gene in the eye and asked the question that silenced the room. Would you like to become a member of the Grand Ole Opry? That question caught everyone off guard. The crowd then erupted with cheers, thunderous applause, and shouts of joy. When Gene heard that question, he was stunned for seconds, as if he wasn't sure he had heard correctly. Then the realization of what was actually about to happen hit, and his face lit up with a mix of shock, gratitude, and smiles. He had waited for this, and he was finally getting it after decades. His fans had always hoped for him to be inducted as a member, and now he was finally getting the recognition he deserved. Gene Watson smiled, wiped his eyes, and accepted the invitation with heartfelt words. This wasn't just another career milestone for him. It was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. Gene Watson was going to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry. It was a very overwhelming moment for him. Gene later revealed in an interview that the Opry recognition was the highlight of his entire career. He had played thousands of shows, recorded dozens of albums, and touched countless lives, but nothing compared to being welcomed into the Opry family. It wasn't just the Opry as an institution recognizing Gene Watson. It was one of the greatest voices in the genre saying, "You belong here, you've earned this." That validation alone meant a lot to Gene. The invitation was only the beginning. The official induction came on February 7, 2020. Gene Watson was inducted into the esteemed organization by Opry member and Grammy-winning artist Steve Weriner. The Opry House was filled to the brim on the night of his induction. You could see that so many had looked forward to that day. The whole auditorium was buzzing with excitement. Fans, fellow artists, and industry insiders gathered to witness a moment that many believed was long overdue. Gene was called onto the stage, but this time he got onto the Grand Opry stage not as a guest, but as a member. Steve Weriner welcomed him into the family with words of admiration. He said that Gene was a great ambassador for country music and one of the best interpreters of a country song that ever lived. He also talked about his timeless voice, authenticity, and the respect he had earned from generations of singers. Gene was then presented with the Opry Membership Trophy, the symbol that his name would forever be part of the Opry's history. His journey had come full circle, from a Texas boy listening to the Opry on the radio to a man standing as a member. After the induction, Gene performed his signature song, "Farewell Party." The choice was fitting. The song had a sweet melody and demanding vocals. It's one of his songs that other singers have attempted to sing, but so far no one has been able to sing it like him. When he finished singing, the audience rose to its feet and gave him applause. The standing ovation and cheers he got were a recognition of everything he had given to country music. That performance became one of the defining moments of his career. To him, it was more than an award or an honor. It was the ultimate validation that his life's work had mattered, that his voice and songs would forever be in the heart of country music. Gene Watson was 76 years old when he was officially inducted as a member of the Grand Opry, the most historic stage in country music. At 81, Gene Watson has spoken about the Opry, and his voice carried the same emotion and gratitude as the night of his induction. The honor had left a permanent mark on his heart. For him, the Opry wasn't just recognition, it was home. When he stood in that circle, surrounded by other legends in country music, he wasn't just Gene Watson, the singer, anymore. He is now Gene Watson, a member of the Grand Ole Opry. This is a title no one would ever take away, as his name will forever be linked to the Grand Ole Opry. The Grand Ole Opry. The Grand Ole Opry is a live country music radio broadcast from Nashville, Tennessee. It is one of the longest-running radio broadcasts in the United States history. Dedicated to honoring country music and its history, the Opry showcases a mix of famous singers and contemporary chart toppers, performing country, bluegrass, Americana, folk, and gospel music, as well as comedic performances and skits. It attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors worldwide and millions of radio and internet listeners. In addition to the radio programs, performances have been sporadically televised from the Grand Ole Opry House east of downtown Nashville. While the Grand Ole Opry may be a well-known name in country music today, this wasn't always the case. When the show started in November 1925, it was under the National Life and Accident Insurance Company, which managed the radio station WSM, named after their slogan, "We Shield Millions." Shortly after it began broadcasting, it was officially named the WSM Barn Dance by George Hay, a prominent announcer and program director. A few years later, in December 1927, when the show had gained a more long-lasting popularity, Hay made a statement on air that would change the name forever. After a broadcast of Walter Damrosch's Music Appreciation Hour, Hay proclaimed the following: "For the past hour, we have been listening to music taken largely from Grand Opera, but from now on, we will present the Grand Ole Opry." The name stuck and remains unchanged almost 100 years later. Membership in the Grand Ole Opry remains one of the highest achievements within the country music community. Regular performers at the Grand Ole Opry can be inducted into the organization as members. Opry management, when it decides to induct a new member, directs an existing member to publicly ask them to join, usually during a live episode. An induction ceremony happens several weeks later, where the inductee is presented with a trophy and gives an acceptance speech. As the Opry is a running series, membership in the show's cast must be maintained throughout an artist's career, through frequent performances, and expires when the performer dies. Only once has a member been inducted posthumously. Keith Whitley, scheduled to be invited 3 weeks after his death in May 1989, was retroactively classified as a member in October 2023. Duos and groups remain members until all members have passed away. Following the demise of a member, the others maintain Opry membership. More recent protocols have allowed incapacitated or retired performers, such as Barbara Mandrell, Gene Pruitt, Stu Phillips, and Ricky Van Shelton, to maintain Opry membership until they pass away. Randy Travis has maintained his Opry membership primarily through non-singing appearances since his 2013 stroke. At the same time, Loretta Lynn was granted similar accommodation from 2017 until she passed away in 2022. The Opry maintains a wall of fame listing every member of the Opry in the show's history. Receiving Opry membership is considered an honor similar in prestige to a Hall of Fame induction, with the caveat that several prominent country musicians never received it. When Don Schlitz was inducted in August 2022, he became the first ever member of the Opry inducted for his songwriting, and not as a performer. This is because he only began regular appearances after Travis's incapacitation, performing songs he had written for Travis and for non-Opry member Kenny Rogers. The Opry also has a history of inviting comedians to the cast. However, none were invited to join between Jerry Clower's induction in 1973 and when Henry Cho and Gary Mule Deer became members in 2023. Following the demise of Jeannie Seely in August 2025, there are 74 active members, plus the Opry Square dancers, who enjoy unique membership status and open every Saturday show. Gene Watson. Gene Watson is one of the most masterful voices in country music today. It is difficult to imagine the world of country music without the vast contribution that Gene Watson has made to it. He still sings in the same key as 50 years ago and continues to prove why he is rightly referred to as the singer's singer. His powerful voice and multi-octave range allow him to easily sing some of the most challenging songs from pure natural talent and his many years performing on stage. Gene Watson was born on October 11, 1943 in the United States, in the small town of Palestine, Texas. He was raised in Paris, Texas, but relocated to Houston in 1963. A street in Paris, Gene Watson Boulevard, is named after him. He began his music career in the 1960s, performing in local clubs at night while working in a Houston auto body shop during the day. He recorded for only a few small regional record labels, having a regional hit with Bad Water. He developed a substantial local following with his stage act, and it was in Houston he released his debut single on Sun Valley Records in 1962. That single, If It Was That Easy, didn't make any charts, but as Gene states, He was excited to see my name on a record release, making him believe he was in the business. It wasn't glamorous, and he wondered if music would ever take him beyond Texas. In 1964, the Grand Ole Opry duo, the Wilburn Brothers, briefly took Gene on the road. The Wilburn Brothers brought Gene to Nashville for the first time and allowed him to sing on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. Then it was back to the Texas honky-tonks and a string of local singles throughout the 60s. But everything changed in 1975 when Capitol Records picked up his album Love in the Hot Afternoon and released it nationally. Love in the Hot Afternoon became his breakthrough hit, opening doors he had never dreamed possible. The title track, a mid-tempo ballad in three-quarter time, was released in June 1975, and it reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart. Watson's national success continued throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, as he recorded several Billboard top 40 hits, including Where Love Begins, Paper Rosie, Should I Come Home or Should I Go Crazy, and Nothing Sure Looked Good on You. He released Farewell Party in 1979, and it became his signature song and the namesake of his Farewell Party band. In February 2012, Watson celebrated his 50th year in the music business with the release of Best of the Best, 25 Greatest Hits. The collection of songs was re-recorded to recreate the originals as closely as possible. The project was produced by Dirk Johnson and released on Watson's own 14-karat music label. In June 2014, Watson released an 11-track album, My Heroes Have Always Been Country, covering hits by some of his musical heroes such as Merle Haggard, Ray Price, and Lefty Frizzell. In February 2016, Watson released his 33rd studio album, Real Country Music. The album contained traditional country music, and the first single release is Enough for You, a song by Chris Christopherson. Watson released a gospel music titled My Gospel Roots in 2018. The first single from that release, Old Roman Soldier, hit number 1 on the Cashbox and Christian Servant Country Gospel charts in June 2018. Gene Watson stands out even in a musical genre noted for its complex luck stories. He has endured the ups and downs of the music business to become a country music legend himself. After releasing his first single in 1962, Watson continued to tour constantly in the USA and abroad. He remained proud to be known as an icon for real country. Watson was inducted into the Texas Country Music Hall of Fame in 2002 and inducted into the inaugural class of the Houston Music Hall of Fame in August 2013. In 2018, Watson received the Entertainer of the Year award from the Reunion of Professional Entertainers Awards, an honor he shared with singer Jeannie Seely. It was the first time in the awards history that a tie occurred in any category. Watson was invited to join the Grand Ole Opry by Vince Gill on January 17, 2020, a voice built for the Opry.
Hill after another.
When you listen to any of Gene Watson's songs, the first thing that hits you is the tone and his strong vocal range. His voice carries a deeply emotional tone that feels timeless. For many fans, it was clear from the beginning that Gene had a sound built for the Grand Ole Opry. But what exactly made his voice so special, and why did it connect with so many people, both inside and outside the country music world? To answer that, we need to look closer at his style, music, and how he wrote his songs to be both traditional and unique. Country music was unpopular when Gene made his mark in the 1970s. In Nashville, they began introducing crossover hits that blended pop with country to reach broader audiences. Many artists followed that pop trend, but Gene didn't. Instead, he stuck to the honky-tonk and classic ballad sounds he had always loved. His voice had a natural quality that fit this style perfectly. It was smooth, soulful, and filled with emotion. When Gene sings a song about heartbreak, you feel his emotions. When he sings about love, it feels like he is opening a piece of his heart. This kind of authenticity was rare, which made him stand out. One of Gene Watson's greatest gifts was his vocal range. He could move effortlessly from low tones to high-pitched notes without losing control and clarity, allowing him to perform songs many other singers would avoid. Take his classic Farewell Party, for example. The song demands a good vocal power because of its high notes. So far, other artists have covered the music, but only a few of them have matched the way Gene delivered it. His ability to hold those high-pitched notes with strength and clarity showed the world that he was more than just a good singer. Gene Watson is a master of his craft. This level of skill made him a favorite among fellow musicians. So many fans loved his hits, and his fellow singers studied his technique. They admired how he could make a difficult song sound effortless, never strain his voice, and always put the song's story first. Technical ability is one thing, but what truly made Gene's voice stand out was the emotion he poured into every line. He had a gift for phrasing, the way he stretched certain words or softened others to bring the lyrics to life. Fans often said hearing Gene Watson was like listening to someone who understood their struggles and joys. His voice carried the kind of empathy that made you feel less alone. That quality is one of the reasons his sound seemed destined for the Opry stage, a place known for honoring artists who could truly move an audience. Gene's voice also earned the respect of country legends, and he became known as the singer's singer. George Jones once praised him as one of the best pure singers in the genre. Merle Haggard admired his ability to stay true to traditional country music, and Conway Twitty appreciated his smooth delivery. These were not casual compliments. These were some of the greatest voices in country history, recognizing Gene as one of their own. This alone is proof that Gene's voice is truly something special. Over the years, many younger singers have cited Gene Watson as an influence. They admired his ability to sing honestly, keep the music simple yet powerful, and stay true to himself. His voice became a personal trademark and a guiding light for others who wanted to carry on the tradition of real country music. Another remarkable thing about Gene Watson is how well his voice has held up. While many singers struggle with aging vocals, Gene has maintained his strength, range, and clarity well into his later years. Even at 81, he can deliver the same power and emotion he was known for decades ago. That consistency is rare and speaks to the care he has always taken with his gift. It also makes his story with the Opry even more powerful. When Gene Watson finally became a member of the Opry, he was still at the top of his game and a well-known voice in country music. Legacy.
I'm telling you, boy, we had them hanging from the rafters, and it was nothing but solid traditional country music.
Gene Watson never intended to become a professional singer within the country music genre. Apparently, he didn't go searching for music. Music found him. By the time Gene reached his later years, his voice had already secured his place in country music history. Between his major record label debut on Capitol Records in 1975 and the present day, Gene Watson has excelled with his traditional slant within country music. His music is part of the very constitution of country music. In Gene Watson's country music recordings, the heartfelt, genuine country music tradition is always preserved. Gene Watson is one country music artist with the skill to give powerful vocal performances and effortlessly draw all the emotion from his selected material. He has remained true to his Texas music roots for the best part of his career and is a standard-bearer for honest, traditional country music. If you ask any number of country singers who their favorite singer is, many of them will respond, Gene Watson. His music peers even named him the singer's singer for his octave jumping range and smooth tone. Gene Watson has 34 studio albums, scored over 72 charted songs, including 23 top 10s, and 11 #1 country and gospel hits over his 60-year career. It is safe to say that most knowledgeable country fans would point to Gene Watson as one of country music's best ballad singers, in the same league as country icons George Jones, Merle Haggard, Ray Price, and others who are the standard bearers for honest, traditional country music. This is why when we say Gene Watson had a voice built for the Opry, we aren't exaggerating. We are recognizing a truth that was clear from the beginning. He belonged on that stage alongside the greatest voices in country music history. It's no surprise to anyone that the Grand Ole Opry asked him to be a member and inducted him into that iconic group. Unsurprisingly, artists like Vince Gill, Leanne Womack, Trace Adkins, Connie Smith, Joe Nichols, Alison Krauss, and many others are happy and eager to record with Gene. It's a stunning truth that at 81 years of age, Gene still sings with his clear, pure tone intact, an unmatched, soulful delivery, and in the same key as he did many years ago. And that is good news for fans of real country music rooted in the timeless values of one of America's bedrock musical genres. Of course, other artists have recorded tracks in the same genre, but none can be compared to the passion, emotion, and genuine feeling that Gene Watson has consistently brought to country music. His voice carries a rare honesty that resonates with listeners, making every lyric believable and heartfelt. Considering the vast catalog of classic country songs that Gene Watson has recorded since the early 1960s, It is clear that his influence has shaped the very heart of traditional country music. His absence from the country music world would have left a gaping hole in the genre and the lives of countless fans who found comfort, inspiration, and connection through his songs. Watson's dedication to authenticity and refusal to compromise his sound for fleeting trends have made his body of work timeless, ensuring that generations will continue to discover the beauty of pure, traditional country through his music. Should Gene Watson have been inducted into the Opry as a member years earlier? What's your favorite Gene Watson song? And which other country legends do you believe deserve a place in the Opry circle? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you never miss an update before watching the video on your screen now. Thank you.